probably a little bit different speaker today. I'm assuming in an entrepreneurship class you're hearing from a lot of people, VCs, CEOs of startups, those who can talk about exits, those who can talk about IPOs. I have a little bit different background. And in that background, I really had to practice a couple of things through this career. And as you can see, do we have engineers in the room? I'm guessing there's a good number of engineers in the room. I have an undergraduate and graduate degree in engineering. I applied that in a big company in a very entrepreneurial way. I can answer some questions about that in the Q&A. But it led me to eventually to a career in sales and some big sales experience and sales responsibilities. And I wanted to show you that kind of dichotomy because it's really going to give you a little bit of sense of what I want to talk about today.
There you go.
So that latter part of my career, as you saw, were big numbers. And to get into those big numbers, I had to become much more aware and familiar with sales and salespeople. So I understand that you all are interactive and you all have a phone on you, so you'll be answering this question. And answer honestly, funny answers, as long as they're appropriate, are very welcome. What do you think when you think of a salesperson? How would you describe them? Pick a word. Keep it simple.
I'll leave this up for just another minute. Then we'll go to the share. Oh, is it working? Yeah, there we go.
All right, so we see some diverse answers here.
Sorry.
Some of them, I'd say, are pretty accurate. Some of them show a lot of our biases. There's a lot of negative connotations here, would you say? Not all positive. Like, this doesn't look like the thing you want to go home right now and show your parents, like, this is what I'm doing, right? And I kind of ran into that trap myself. Any ones that jump out to you? Like, cunning, that's a good one. Pushy, not so good. Golf, there is a lot of golf, I hear. Sleazy, sly, persuasive. Some interesting different sides of the coin. How do I get the next one up? But I wanted to really, we're going to come back to this because I want to see if you believe the same thing in a couple of minutes after I explain a little bit more about myself. So I mentioned in that nice little chart a little bit about my career, but I'm going to give it to you again in two chunks. 20 years, I got to do really interesting things for very large companies in a very entrepreneurial way. So think about entrepreneurship in big companies as doing the thing no one else is doing. If everyone's working on the core product, what is the product that the company wants to go and invest next, or maybe acquire next? Higher risk, higher reward. That was really what I practiced for a while. And I also helped to build products. And those products were amazing products. They basically sold themselves. I took them out to customers. I was a product manager. And customers loved my products. And sales must have been really easy because my products were so great. Then I moved into sales leadership. I became eventually a chief revenue officer and really solely accountable for that top line revenue for the company. More recently, I've been spending more time in smaller companies, earlier stage AI companies, and I get to see the spectrum from some of the smallest, most innovative companies to some of the largest and also innovative companies of the moment. I'm also a mom of teens. I can talk about my dogs forever. And my husband had a little job as a fire chief. So he kept people alive as I went on my way to grow big businesses. He had a really interesting job. So like you, I didn't have a wholly positive point of view in sales. I mentioned I was in a different part of a career journey for about 20 years. And these were the words I sincerely would have written down at that time. I thought there was a lot of inexplicable golf and lunches and dinners. And I was like, that seems to be a lot more interesting than the time I spend in my day these days. I didn't play golf very well, so I wasn't sure how I felt about that. And I also had this kind of paradigm of, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Glenn Ross. It's a movie, actually a play about salespeople, and that kind of sleazy used car salesman. That's what I thought of in a lot of my experiences. So I didn't have a wholly positive view. Then when I moved into sales and I got a knock, as I was an executive, senior leader, knock on the door and say, hey, we want you to move over here. Here's why we want you to move over here. It's a great opportunity to take your technical learnings and bring them into sales and really elevate how we're talking to customers technically, which made a lot of sense, right? And I was like, hey, how hard can this be? How hard can this be? I've been building these great products. I've been acquiring these great products. Customers love these products. Our business is growing. I thought that it looks like a pretty straight line, right? Take the products to the customers. They buy the products. You keep going. Turns out, not so much. Much more like the chart on the right. And I can explain reasons why, but I really didn't have a lot of empathy until I got into the role, how hard it is when you have a great product that you want to sell to customers. They want to buy the product, and it's still not a straight line. So I had a lot of learning. So hopefully in the couple minutes we have here today, I'll give you 5 things I would have loved to know even before I would call myself an entrepreneur, but just as a learning leader about sales that I wish I would have known earlier in my career. So let me get through these, and I'll hit them one by one, and you'll have some time to ask me questions later. But the first thing is sales fundamentals. And before I jump into this, I'm going to ask, have any of you been in any kind of sales role in your life? Any? Okay, we got a couple hands up, not a lot. Girl Scout cookies counts. It's actually one of the largest correlations of successful entrepreneurs and executives is Girl Scouts. It's an interesting fact. The first thing was the fundamentals. I thought I knew the fundamentals. I did not. Believe it or not, the first fundamentals is people. But it's not maybe what you think. So I thought of a salesperson as one human being, one almost archetype in my head, it was male. It was somebody who'd been doing this for 25 years, knew the ins and outs of selling, knew how to do the handshakes right, and when to schedule the steak dinners, and when to do the deals, and how to negotiate the final numbers. And it was very singular. And what I've learned is it is not a singular role and a single human and a single set of skills, that there are actually a number of people. It's a vocation. It's a space for you to build a competency, a career, and there's lots of different elements of it. Not everyone is a wild extrovert who has to be on all of the time. There are people in different roles and different functions in sales organizations. Why do you care about this? You're like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Why do I need to know about this? Well, if you're building a sales team, you might want to have some competency in what kind of sales do I need? Do I need everyone selling, and I need to compensate them as their sellers, or do I need people supporting them? Yes and yes. You need to have that competency of even having the Q&A to make sure you understand what you're building. So just even knowing that there's a lot of different human beings that power a sales organization is just something fundamental I'd missed until later in my career. And I think the most important thing is those people are the ones you have to then trust to represent your brand every day. Not just your product, but your brand. And I'm sure others have come before me talking about the power of the importance of trust and brand trust and customer trust. Critical for every company to really understand that, earn trust every day. But it's not just through a product lens. Again, don't fall for the traps I fell in. The products can be amazing, but it's people. It's the people who call. It's the people who pick up the phone. It's the people who know who are the decision makers on the other end that really represent what you want in front of your customers. The second thing, which is almost counterintuitive, because I almost thought of this, there's so much people, and it's like, I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer, like I want data, and these people are very more like, soft skills, and these are hard skills. There's a lot of data in sales, and I pulled some visuals. There's a million out there. If everyone's here in the sciences and engineering and finance and HR, everyone has a process. Sales also has a process. Sales can be measured. Sales has data. Sales has KPIs. That means sales has a language. So let's say you're in finance, or you're in HR, or you're in product and engineering, or you're the CEO. You need to learn what this system looks like and the language. These are just the fundamentals. Again, when you get in there and you live in it, you learn it. But wouldn't it be great, even if you're a companion or a partner, that you start immersing yourself in this other language, you're going to get smarter about your business, you're going to get smarter about your product, you're going to get smarter about how business runs. So people and data, 2 fundamentals. The second thing I wanted to introduce was this idea that sales and goes and sells independently your products to whomever in the world. That's not true. It's the responsibility of the leaders of the business to say, here's our plan, here's who we want to sell to, here's the product value proposition. Has everyone heard product market fit in here a number of times? I'm sure you have. You have to write that down. You have to make it clear in English. You have to make sure it's road tested through your sellers and customers a couple of times before you put it in the plan and say, we want this product market value proposition in these places with these number of customers with this much dollar per customer, and this is the equation. And then you need to compensate your sellers according to that plan. This sounds really, really basic, doesn't it? Super simple, right? Super hard in real life. It's very hard when you have many products. It's very hard when you have big customers, mid-sized customers and small customers. You've probably heard PLG here. What if you've done well in PLG, but you want to go big? All of these things get very complicated.
Actually, I don't think we've heard of PLG. What is that?
PLG is product-led growth. So think of companies that you don't need to, you can go and automatically sign up. I was just talking about Canva, Canva, right?
Yep.
Canvas, thank you. I discovered it, I'm using it, I love it. I used it for a week, and then I gave my credit card. Product-led growth. No one's selling to me, no one called me, right? If you're a company and you started doing that, you can have a lot of your company start using it, and then maybe someone will call you later. So lots of companies start their business, especially kind of internet-based businesses that way. The thing that is, has anyone heard coin-operated before? That's my visual here. Sales, and a senior seller I was talking to before this presentation said, if you get coin-operated sellers pointed in the right direction, they always deliver. And it took me a while to embrace this idea of coin-operated because it feels very robotic, very transactional. But what they were trying to tell me, to really communicate to you, is sellers are like anyone else. If you give them direction and you give them compensation aligned to that direction, amazing things will happen. And that is not a negative thing, that compensation aligned to plan is really, really key to get right. And on the flip side, if things start unraveling and you can't hit your numbers or you're having challenges, you can't blame the sellers. You have to look at how are you collecting that plan, communicating it to them, and what's going wrong. I'm going fast here because I'm trying to get a couple ideas out, and I can't wait to have your Q&A around this. So I hope you're listening and taking notes. Sellers. I learned a lot from sellers, but I learned as a group, they're some of the best truth tellers in your business. So if you're really trying to understand not just how customers are ingesting a product or giving feedback on a product, but what's happening in the market, what's happening in the competitive landscape, what's happening in the world, geopolitical risks. These are the people you want to be listening to. You don't want to be sitting in your HQ in Berkeley, in the Bay, in New York, where that is, and thinking about the world by just people sitting in that room. That these are the folks on the ground that will give you intimate knowledge of what's happening regionally, what's happening in and around the customers that are blind spots that you may not see. And that voice of sales is really critical to be always listening to, always in your planning of your business, of your future, of where you're going. And sellers tend to be really amazing truth tellers. They are really at the edge of what's working and what's not working. And if you listen to them, it's really important feedback for you to consider, especially as you're thinking about growth, especially as you're thinking about trade-offs. And I think a lot of companies don't necessarily embed this in what they do day to day. It's more ad hoc. So if you think about how you build a business and build a business plan and how you operate a business, having this as your operating DNA is something to really consider. But it all goes back to listening. You know, if you think about the people in the room here, not many of you have had sales experience. I bet a lot of you aren't necessarily thinking about careers in sales. So you better find someone that's pretty close, because I'll give you one more tip. When you find somebody in sales, whether you're entering a large company like I did, whether you're going to a mid-sized company or you're working in a startup, these are people you want to know. You want to know them for a couple reasons. One, they are, by themselves, they've had to practice and get very competent at listening, at articulating feedback back to people as they've said, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, am I accomplishing that? They're very creative. Sometimes they have to navigate things in a way that no one can tell them. They have to go into a company and navigate it themselves. They're amazing at navigating politics. In a company that you might be selling into, there's a lot of political checkpoints to go through to get a yes. They have to design that. They have to think about it. They have to be nimble. Those are things that any of you will want to do in your career, right? Like all of those, no matter where you're coming from, those are qualities and abilities to have a coach, to have somebody who can help you with that, who's practiced and they've been doing it for years or they're practicing it in another part of their business. It is an amazing place to tap into. And I always find that those folks are also coming many times with outside-in points of view. Some of them are coming outside of your business, maybe outside of your industry, outside of your region. So that not only do you get their experience from their vocation, but also from places you wouldn't have otherwise. So bringing a salesperson into your network, super important. And finally, I'm going to talk about AI, because I can't get in front of a crowd like this without talking about AI. And some of you might think, and maybe this is a top of mind for many of the things that are top of mind for students right now, is how is AI going to disrupt? If I want to go into this vocation, or if this is happening in the world right now, is it going to change significantly from AI? And the answer is yes, it's absolutely going to change. There's going to be things that people do and systems, and how do you find new customers, and how do you know how to grow your business more effectively with data? All of that is going to be much easier through AI tools. But none of that can replace humans. At the end of the day, human beings, leading sales, leading your brand to customers, building relationships, being there to take the phone calls when something might not be succeeding, when your operation goes dark, when something gets shipped to the wrong country. These are all scenarios that I can share some stories. These are the human beings you need to maintain that trust. So let me tell you what I think will happen here. You have a visual here, which is one of many. All of these things are benefits that leaders are going to look for with technical competencies, right? The tools you use, I'm sure, do you guys use Notebook LM? Yeah, if you're not, it's amazing, I love it. You're using some kind of AI tools. Just like when you go out into the workforce where you're in sales, or where you're coding as an engineer, or whether you're in HR, AI is going to disrupt the way you think about data. But that's what you are doing so well right now in school, is really looking at tons and tons of data and synthesizing it and creating new ideas. So I actually am really bullish that you all are going to be really prepared for a future that we're about to see. I'm going to tell probably one more quick story that, if you take anything, and I know I've shared a lot really quickly, the thing that I regret, and I'm sure you hear lots of stories of success, but I always remember the ones where people will talk about their failure. And remember I talked about being an engineer for 20 years, right? I was in product, I built new architectures, I launched new businesses, all of those great things. I never once thought to ask some of the questions. Who are these people? Who are the people that are selling? What do they get measured on? How do we know we're doing well? How does this whole process work? Who sets up the plan? How did they get compensated? I hear they make a lot of money, right? How do we listen to them? I never asked these questions, and I was pretty successful. Can you imagine how much more successful I would have been if I was more curious? I was not curious. And I thought of myself as a really curious person. And you might know the TV show. Do you know Ted Lasso? I'm getting like blank stares here. There was a scene, I was looking for it, where Ted Lasso is playing darts. Anyone familiar with this scene? Okay. So you guys can imagine it as I'm talking about it. So Ted Lasso is playing darts with a villainous character in the TV show, Ted Lasso. This guy thinks he's got it made in this game where he's made a bet playing darts. And Ted has to hit 3 amazing shots in a row to win. And it's really an interesting 2-minute kind of soliloquy where he talks about when he grew up, he would go and play with his father every Sunday from when he was 10 to when he was 16. And if someone would have asked, this villainous character would have just bothered to ask, do you know how to play? Have you ever played? He wouldn't have taken this bet because he goes then and makes these 3 amazing dart wins. I don't know what they're called. So it made me think, and I wanted to open up the conversation because I really want to hear from you all. You probably won't remember all of the things that I shared and all of the things I wish I would have known from sales. But I hope you remember that even when you're succeeding, even when you're feeling great about what you do, look for those blind spots. Because where that curiosity blind spot is an amazing place. And it's not just an amazing place because you can build a career or you can get wealthy or you can do all these things that feel like success on one hand, but it's really learning about people, experiences, why things work a certain way. And if you have energy here, you're all students, you probably have really great energy in some classes and maybe less energy in others. These are places you have to continue to stretch your curiosity. You know, I've been pretty successful over a 25+ year career, and I'm still learning about my blind spots. And I actually have these great opportunities, as you do, of looking ahead over the next 5, 10, 15 years. If you're not curious about how AI is changing the world, I don't know what you're doing. If you're not curious about how we come together in teams and build things differently, I don't know how, we're not going to be able to practice the things that we've done for the last 25 or 50 years. So I'm really curious to see how many of you in this room are going to attack the world differently than I did, but this will remain true through the next, eons, that your curiosity will be your unlock. And I want to thank you for letting me kind of go on about all the things I didn't know and wish I would have known. I hope it's helpful for you as entrepreneurs. But the other thing I wanted to share is this is a picture of my dog, one of my 2 dogs. Another thing I wanted to open up, and I said we'd have more time to talk about these things in the next session, is I'm taking some time for myself this year, and if you stalk me on LinkedIn, I talk about taking a sabbatical. And I have been going 150 miles an hour since I was in your seats, quite literally. I've never had a break. Even when I had medical issues left, I was going right through. And I have an opportunity right now to step back, give back, look at some things happening in the world, spend some time with smaller companies that are doing amazing work. But the one thing I would say I'm really grateful for is time to reflect with people and things that I love to do. So this was just a reminder to share. I'm spending time in my limited calendar of 24 hours a day on something I call fun. And one of those fun things is volunteering with dogs, and specifically puppies. And what I'm getting out of it is the space that I have for myself. Self-care, and I know hopefully you're starting to practice self-care. I was awful at practicing self-care in university. I was in the university urgent care once a semester because I got so sick from no sleep, eating poorly, going out partying. Don't do that. It's a bad practice. So self-care is really great to start practicing now. It's taken me 25 years to unlock that. But I would add to that where you have space for just joy, something that's joyful, like playing with puppies, like your equivalent of that. It actually makes you better at everything else because it forces you to take time, to take a breath, to recharge, and step back and be better at what you do. So I can talk a little bit about that as well. Hopefully there's some other dog lovers out here. I'm ready to take some Q&A.
That sounds great. I have a question before we even go into the student Q&A. So Haley has a wireless microphone. It's very, very exciting. We're not passing around the lav mic. I have this over here, and we'll take questions from you all. But as you're thinking of your questions, I am wondering, Merrie, we've heard from a CEO, we've heard from a CMO, we've heard from a VC. You are the first revenue officer that we've heard from who has an engineering background.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious. What's the best story, the best sale you've ever heard? And what was the story about it?
Gosh, okay, so probably I should, what is a chief revenue officer? Should I start there? Let me just not assume you all know.
Yeah.
I got some head nods. So on a leadership team, say you start with the CEO, right? I like to think of it this way because I'm a linear thinker. You need to know what you're gonna build, right? So let's call it engineering, products, build something, please, right? And then you have to figure out how you're going to take it to market, right? You might have some theories, but someone has to actually package it and take it to market, really put that value proposition together that I mentioned. So I think of that as the CMO. I'm very much shortchanging all this, but I'm trying to give you a lay of the land. Then your chief financial officer comes in and says, okay, we've spent this much money to build this product. We aspire to make this much money from selling this product, your top line, your bottom line. Here's our plan for the year or the years ahead. A lot of times you're going to ask for money because it's going to take you a while to make the money. So your CFO helps with that plan. Your CRO, your chief revenue officer, is really responsible for delivering the plan. So all these people have these great ideas, but the chief revenue officer looks at how do we implement this? How do we get the sales teams in the right place, in the right regions, aligned with the right customers, with the right compensation that motivates them to go and deliver their plan or above their plan so you hit that number? How do you support those customers? How do you onboard those customers? How do you make sure that deals are constructed in a way that meet the customer expectations and the business expectations? That kind of all falls under the CRO. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay. So when things go well and your customers are really excited to buy your product and you're in a hot market and you're top of the heap, it's really about maximizing. How do you maximize that, and how do you make the best choices to put people or to put automation so you capture that demand and get out in front of the market? You want to do that as efficiently as possible, right? You don't want to just add thousands and thousands of sales heads and then you're all of a sudden you have a very high cost. So you have to think efficiently. So as an engineer, I looked at what are the things and practices I learned as an engineer in systems and efficient ways of learning. Agile, practices were another thing that we brought into sales. Instead of saying, hey, let's plan for years and years, how do we plan in smaller increments? So I came in with a little bit different background. We also had to go deeper in the technology conversations with customers, so that was another place that engineering and CRO come together. It is a unique, to your point. Most of the time you don't have people from product go into revenue or vice versa. Actually, I believe there's a lot of strength and opportunity when you do that because you get a lot of empathy. Because most, again, product leaders think, I make the best product in the world. I don't understand why sales isn't selling it. Sales is like, this product isn't as great as these people think, and it's a lot harder. And so when you get that cross-pollination.
I'm still curious, what's the best story you've heard?
I was thinking about that. I think the best story always goes back. I think anyone who's in sales will tell you, if there's any athletes in the room, the game that you win by 10-0, or on like soccer, or dozens to nothing for football, those are not the best games because they're boring. It's the games where you come from behind. So I would say that I think, I remember getting a phone call the week before Halloween, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was at Microsoft, and we had a big bank, And we were really great at serving banks. We'd served banks for decades with all of our amazing products. And this bank was about to make a final decision to go to AWS. And they needed executives to lean in to go convince this bank that after all the due diligence they did, and after us not showing up very well, they should pause their decision-making process and consider us. And I partnered with another executive on the technical side, me on the revenue side, and we had real conversations. We called up real human beings. It'd be like calling up you, one side of the room, the gentleman over here, one of the team members over here, and saying, you don't know me, but you need to stop everything you're doing because they obviously had a plan, and trust us, we're going to bring you a great story. We've never talked. And they said, okay, we have enough credibility in Microsoft, we're going to pause for a week. And in a week, we came together, made a pitch. This was, by the way, it was very low % chance of winning. And within 6 weeks, we had turned it fully around and won, a multi-$100-million deal. And everyone has a story like that, I think in a career of sales.
But what do you think was the secret? Like what made Microsoft bite? Oh, excuse me, what made, yeah,
it was Microsoft, yeah. What made us, I think at a personal level, it was almost like game on, right? We knew we had a great solution. We knew we could serve customers in that scenario, banking sector. We knew we had the best teams on the planet, the best technology on the planet. We had just missed, maybe we had stumbled, maybe we missed a window, maybe there was a transition in people. Things happen, and I think the thing that if you get caught up in blaming and pointing fingers and going, how did we get here? We would never have made it, right? And so, they talk about, cultures and teams and trust. There was zero energy spent on how did we get here, and 100% energy on how do we have a real, reasonable answer to their problem. But those are fun. Those are really fun. I think the other probably thing is first sale. Like the first sale, on the other side, like hundreds of millions of dollars, and you're celebrating, you really feel good at the end of the day when you can see I did that work, and it was discussed in a shareholder review. You can see it on the paper. That's amazing. Like you just feel so intimately involved in the success of your company and the stock price. On the other side, it's the hidden things too. If you start small and you have an idea and the first customer that says yes is like the same energy. It's really amazing. And I think it all goes back to that pride of, I built something that someone else believed in and it provided value, and all of the people behind me that stood behind that story. Because a lot of, it's your personal brand too, it's your personal credibility. If someone walked up to you right now and said, hey, I'm going to hand this to you, and I need you to sell it to the next person. What did you hand me, right? What is this? So there's that bit of trust in these places that you belong, and say, I need to know this is what we said it is, that we're going to stand behind it, that we have clarity and that trust of the whole organization that's going to stand behind what I'm telling this customer right now.
Great. Raise those hands. We'll come to you, or you can come down here. Do you want to come back here, since you're so close to the side? You have to actually get up. You still have to get up. Come on back.
While you're doing that, I'm going to tell a bad story. I think everyone loves these stories. So I keep talking about brand and trust, and you're probably like, yeah, these are just words. And honestly, again, 20 years, I was like, these brand, trust, sure. Worst phone call I've ever had to make. You didn't ask me this one, so maybe someone will ask me this one. That I was a mid-level executive, so people more senior than me that were talking to very senior people at a customer. So I was orchestrating, making sure everyone's talking amongst themselves. When we got bad news, we had committed to a customer. They were our first and only customer with a new technology. And we had gone public and said, we love each other. You're the only partner for me. And I get a phone call that we were about to announce a second partner, that another team decided independently to sign up their competitor, another partner. And that someone needed to call this this was actually the CTO of a very large cloud company, very public figure.
Did you say coffee brand?
Cloud company.
Oh, cloud, sorry.
Somebody you would see on the internet with many, many videos and all of that.
Can you say their name rhymes with or no?
No, because it's a whole thing to unravel. I then had to call their peer and say, hey, bad news, you've got to call. And this is really tough, and here's what happened, and yes, it's awful, and we know somebody made a mistake down the line. You got to make this call by 8 p.m. because it's going to break in the news. And again, I felt awful. This made me nervous, like I'm sweating. And that executive said, I'm not making the call, you are, and bailed. And I was shocked, embarrassed, terrified, angry, and watched the clock. It was 5 p.m. And I didn't want to make the call. So I procrastinated, and at 7:55, I texted and I said, I need to talk to you in the next 5 minutes. We didn't have a great relationship. We had a limited relationship. And I had to make this phone call on behalf of the company that we had not lived up to what we'd promised. And that's the day I knew what that trust in brand and that moment in sales really meant. I didn't understand until that moment how hard it is to be the voice of your company until you had to make a phone call like that. So that's my story.
So you ended up making the phone call.
I did make the phone call.
How did you do it? How did you position it?
I told the truth. I was honest. I was apologetic. I ensured that this was not meant to be a step back from what we committed, but a mistake. And that I didn't have an answer of how we were going to reconcile that mistake. But we were going to work on that. And I was going to work on the team to respond.
Did you have in your mind scenarios of what could happen, or in those 5 minutes you didn't have time for that?
You don't know. I mean, I didn't know the person well enough. I mean, it would be like, imagine calling somebody you know, maybe a professor from a year ago, someone you know but don't know, and just being so embarrassed. I was afraid to get yelled at. I was afraid that I would get, give me the number of your CEO right now. The person on the other line got really upset. He was really disappointed. He said both of those things and said, I don't understand how this happened. Let's talk about it in the morning. And I felt that was reasonable, like completely reasonable. But again, sales, I didn't understand. I thought, remember the sleazy stuff and the sly and all your words too? I didn't understand how the flip side of that, the reality of these people who are out representing companies, they have to be so human because they have to make those types of phone calls. And so I gained a lot of respect because that was one phone call. And the people that worked around me who had done this for 20 years and 30 years, they're like, good job. There's going to be more of those. Wow. Mistakes happen. Human beings make mistakes. You are the person that makes the call.
Thanks. Will you introduce yourself also?
Hi, my name is Josh. Thank you for coming. I have kind of 3 questions that are similar, so just answer what resonates the most. My question is, in your 25 years of experience in sales, have you ever seen a small company starting from zero go right into enterprise sales, or did they always have to start with the mom and pops and the mediums before they could gain credibility and build the infrastructure to support enterprise? And then on top of that, what is your best go-to-market strategy tip for distribution for D2C and B2B?
Oh my goodness. These are 2 white papers. The first answer is yes. I think the question, I'll reframe it maybe in generic terms. If you feel like you have a company, an idea, or a business that's going to work for large or medium or even small enterprises, there's companies that serve those enterprises every day that are very small and very nascent. How you do it is going to be very different than a Microsoft, a Google, a Salesforce. And so I absolutely, I could rattle off, a company I'm working with today, we were talking about, and is an application in the Teams app is doing very well, direct to enterprise. Most of the SaaS companies I could rattle off were all direct to enterprise, whether it's whatever, the Smartsheet, Qualtrics, et cetera. And so I think it's more about understanding, being confident in who values this and then verifying it. And if it's a enterprise company, then you just work on verifying it with as many enterprise companies as you can and narrowing it down. But yeah, there's absolutely a path there. It's hard. It's not easy. And sometimes it's law of numbers. Those small companies sometimes combine with other small companies and accelerate faster. The second question. Go to market for
D2C and B2B.
B2B and D2C. So I'm not a direct consumer person.
Okay. Don't worry about it, just whatever resonates.
B2B. So how do I simplify this? It goes back to, you remember talking about planning? This might you might be losing interest at this point if I'm starting to talk GTMs and B2B, I feel like I'm at work. But really it's, how do you think about a structure of a plan if you're a business selling to business and they're selling to their customers? So think about all these companies that are like, hey, take this new, a lot of the AI companies have to figure this out. How do we sell AI to a company that can then save money, right? Customer service, or their workers can be more efficient, or whatever those are. And the go-to-market has to, first and foremost, understand, what's your value proposition, who are your key customers, what segments, and where do you make choice? Because the big failing in most things is if you go to try to do everything at once, you'll fail. And even the biggest companies in the world have that conversation. Even at Microsoft, whereas at Equinix and Intel, you have to make choices. And the better you are and the more picky you are at making choices, it's kind of like a life thing too. If you try to do everything, you fail at most things. So your go-to-market in B2B is really about narrow, and then smaller increments of growth.
Could I follow up on that?
Sure.
So let's say you have that. Hello. Hi. So starting from zero, getting in front of decision makers. I've personally walked into just random headquarters to sell software that I knew they needed, but I'm curious if there's more graceful ways to do it because, sometimes you can get warm intros. I'm curious how people do it aside from cold emails, showing up at the front desk, or just walking in.
Yeah. I would say the best way, there's no best one way, but I would always prefer to see, if you think there's a use case, so let me just say your use case is marketing. I'm a marketer, you're gonna sell me some software that makes my marketing team more proficient at our demand generation. How do you find not the CEO of the company or even the head of marketing, but someone who uses it every day? Find those people, seed those people, make them their super users, people who you may have a network with. In this room, if you don't take the advantage of LinkedIn, I know LinkedIn is probably the most boring social media in your lives, but if you don't take advantage of the fact that a couple years from now, everyone in this room could be a potential customer for what you're trying to sell, that's silly. This is the place where you can find those seed customers and get really good feedback because you're hey, remember we were in that class together? I have a favor. And so finding that persona is a really good place to start.
Can I just see if there are other questions before we go around?
I think we had a couple up front.
Yeah, and then we'll come back if we have time.
Okay, hi. My name is João. Thank you for the presentation today. My question is, how do you decide and how do you reason about the go-to-market strategy, mainly regarding pricing and channel? So channel, if you go to a sales-led approach or ability or partner-led, something like that. And pricing, if you go for a subscription-based or a usage-based or with AI and others, outcome-based or paper outcome. How do you reason about that, and what do you consider about how do your customers use the product or who your customers are to decide on this aspect of go-to-market strategy?
Channel and pricing. Yeah. Those are huge. So both you guys have interesting questions that can all be white papers. Okay, so channel, I think of this, so I'm gonna flip it around and say if I went to a new company and they say, we have a great channel strategy, my first question is, how did you build your channel strategy into everything you've done? Your products, your commercials, like your marketing, your ability to, all of those things, it's kind of the homework for channel. If you built as if your product can be sold by your sellers and channel or partners, then you're in a really good position. If you haven't, you gotta go do that first. Like this sounds so simple, but a lot of companies aspire to build and then have a channel later, and they didn't do the right things to really set the channel up for success. And the channel will show up because if they think they can make money, they're gonna try to make money with you. You might have a great product, but if you make it really painful for them, it's better to invest in like fixing that first. That's kind of my soapbox of make it easy and then you can scale versus, because again, I'm an engineer in my head, I want to engineer things efficiently. You can build thousands of people in your channel organization, or you can build dozens that do the same thing because you're just more automated and efficient. In kind of pricing, like pricing is like, there's no easy answer. I think of things similar to the answer I had here, which is, you start small, you have your theories. Like it's, again, like sales is actually more scientific than you might think. You have a hypothesis. I have this persona. I think they're gonna value this product. I think I can go from a freemium. Okay, then you try that, little bit, not with everybody, and go, okay, let's model this out. It seems to be working, but what if this happens next? What if we scale? Is that what we want? Okay, no, let's change our model here, because if we scale, we want a different model. But doing it in small increments, even the biggest companies, like even at Microsoft, let me step back. They went from an entire business that was completely licensed model for decades to subscription. So like there's no like get it right at the beginning. You have to be able to adapt, and you have to build that adaptability into your systems. You might even have products that you have one product you sell one way and another product you sell another. I don't love it, but sometimes it works. So I think it's more about finding the answer to the customer in the scenario and then keeping your discussions open to make sure you can adapt. Because you don't want to be the one that's like, oh, so we're so happy about making this money, and someone comes in and disrupts you. And you're like, what happened? So you have to be really adaptable in that.
And for AI native companies, do you think that there's something special about the go-to-market strategy, mainly with this challenge of going from early adopters to the late majority of adopting AI native products?
Oh gosh. I mean, AI is my simple statement for AI is, consumers, us, we're gonna be early adopters, right? And then enterprises are gonna be later adopters. Now, how fast can we get enterprises to adopt? That's like the, $500 billion question. So I think just being realistic, like if anyone wants to sell to enterprises here, it takes a long freaking time. It takes a long time for decisions. It takes a long time. So you just have to understand there's like some physics you can't break, and being patient and being thoughtful, and then again, doing it incrementally. B2C, go faster, right? You have the ability to do that. Just different economics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you want to come down, and we'll ask a question in the meantime. Yeah, can you give, oh, here, sorry, I just
There's
can't
some
get
up
the
front
mic.
here too. I can shout, I can repeat your
All
question.
right. Okay.
I'll get you in.
Thanks. You'll go first, then I'll let you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just follow up on that. As a college student, we're not really exposed to like B2B, any sort of at least sales in any sort of way, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly being marketed to, but we never really get to see the other side. So if you want to learn about that, or like what are your first, if the college student want to learn about this, how will it be? Secondly, like what are your biggest takeaways from your 25 years experience in this?
Gosh.
That's it.
Yeah, I think the first question is a really good one. I'm not sure if I have a great answer. We were talking earlier that when I was in school, I didn't shy away from sales. I didn't know it was an option. Like I didn't know how to research it. I didn't know how to shape it. I didn't have this language. I'm still, like, the language itself of sales feels foreign to some degree. I would say let me maybe step back before I say sales, is when you think about a company, remember I broke down the company and I said some people have to build things and some people have to market things, some people have finance, and you're all probably getting degrees in something around these places. No one's getting a degree in sales, right? There's literally no degree in sales, right? You can be a CFO, you can be a CMO. But what I would love for people to understand is if you want to own the conversation with the company's conversation with the customer, if you want to have responsibility for accomplishing a specific goal inside of 12 months, and that goal is landing an idea, progressing that idea, getting a sale on paper, supporting that customer to get onto your platform. I'm talking software, but like there's physical items too that are all the same. These are things that are absolutely required and an amazing vocation to explore in any industry at any time, from the smallest company to the largest. I don't have a great answer for you because it's not, I bet there's some at Berkeley, but when I was at Michigan, I have to say I was just back at Michigan, I asked this question, I went to the business school and I said, why isn't there a vocation track in sales? Like, I don't understand, because every company on the planet has somebody who's in charge of sales, right? Someone needs to deliver this. And I don't think there is a good one. I think you have to do a lot of homework on your own. I think there's really amazing people out there that you can follow on the LinkedIns. A lot of CEOs end up talking like sellers because they gravitate to that when they, especially when they've been building a company from scratch, founders or folks that grew a company to IPO. Like Satya Nadella is a very customer-centric pitch guy at Microsoft. He's good to listen to. But you have to do your work in trying to pattern match against. I don't know if you have any ideas. Yeah, Lacey is a colleague here from Microsoft who works across our 87,000 people, and it's something we do talk about, is getting the skilling right. I would say, like, for you or anybody here, again, networking, getting to know, reaching out to an early career seller somewhere, maybe somebody who went to this class or this school or somewhere, and just starting to say, what do you do? Do you like it? Would I like it? Is a great way to start. Or even starting a career on one path and exploring sales as a place to rotate. There's rotation programs in sales, they're amazing. And then the other is looking at if you're a product manager going to sales, or if you're in sales going to marketing, those types of things. The other one was what did I learn in 25 years feels a little expansive. I'll give you maybe a different answer. So in my introduction, thank you very much, we talked about things I cared about. It is Black History Month. I am a Black executive, if you haven't noticed. Something that took me 25 years to figure out, and I'm still figuring out, is how do you speak with your authentic voice? And the places where I succeeded, everyone wants to know, how did you get and navigate? The one thing that's consistent of where people saw me succeed, gave me promotions, gave me bigger jobs, gave me even bigger jobs, is when I was the most authentic. It wasn't when I was copying somebody else's, trying to be somebody else, or trying to pattern match with some other leader that had done it before me. When I did that, it comes off really inauthentic, right? I like soccer. I don't know if anyone else likes soccer, football for Europeans or whoever is in the room. You can only go so far trying to copy a Ronaldo, a Ronaldinho, Beckham. You can't be amazing until you figure out your version of that. And so, and you don't have to be 25 years in to figure that out. You can be 1 or 2 years in your career and say, this is what I do really well right now. And I'm going to lean really hard into that. I'm going to really lean hard into what I'm learning too. And so I know it's counterintuitive because you want to be safe, and you want to show up and you want people to really think you know it all, but no one knows it all. Imposter syndrome is my least favorite 2 words in the world. No one ever knows everything they want to know. Everyone's always uncomfortable. The more you're comfortable with being uncomfortable and leading through that, the more successful you'll be. So that's my 25-year one thing.
Can I just add something on the sales? I think that a good way to practice sales is to do something that maybe people don't think is sales. You know how people write suave, smooth, those are the kind of things. Actually, the best salespeople are sometimes engineers because they ask questions. And so practicing asking questions, not yes, no questions, but questions that will lead you to asking more questions, and just doing that all the time, I think that could be the trick to figuring out how to be a better salesperson also. So, just a thought.
It kind of goes back to what I'm saying here is like, even if you're identifying as I'm interested in entrepreneurship, one thing entrepreneurs have to do really well and all sellers have to do really well is be able to cold call or open up a door with someone and be very uncomfortable because you have 15 minutes, 30 minutes to make this great impression. That takes a lot of practice. And you've probably heard people come from having to pitch their company 50 times, 100 times to get through a round of funding. That skill set is a sales skill set. You have to communicate with clarity. You have to adjust, like that person told you that was a horrible pitch. You have to adjust. You can't get sad about it. You got to get better. So like I agree, there's like a practice to selling, and I would put selling here. And there's ways you can get better at it by asking people who might be sellers, right? Go ahead.
You just have to turn it on if it's not on.
Hi, my name is Max. My question is actually in a similar vein. I think a lot of people in the room are getting technical degrees.
Yeah.
And we're learning a lot of technical information, so like starting off as an engineer. I'm actually a transfer student, so I started off doing a sales job in community college to pay to go to Cal. And as much as I enjoy my technical degree, because I think it's important to have expertise on both sides of the table, I don't feel like my skill set is uniquely suited to be a great technical employee. But I do want to have experience in that field. I'm curious, what was your experience like starting off as an engineer, going into product, and then eventually switching over to revenue? What were kind of those calling points which made you think this is the right shift for me? And do you have any mentors that kind of helped guide your way? And
That's a
where
great
did you
question.
find them if you did?
Yeah, I really didn't expect to take this path. So I have a manufacturing engineering degree, and I thought I'd go to a factory in buildings and be in charge of that factory. That's what I thought coming out of my master's degree. And I realized after less than 2 years, it was interesting, but kind of boring. Like there wasn't a lot of movement. Like my peers had been in jobs like 10 years. I was like, oh my gosh, that's not for me. It wasn't for me. And so I jumped out of that part of engineering and went into like, I'll call it like bleeding edge engineering. So places where the company was making big bets, but like no one knew the heck was gonna happen. And what happened there is, and you guys has anyone talked about entrepreneurship? Like being an entrepreneur in a big company? So when you go to those places, like people will give you a job, but your job is actually like 5 jobs. So I was like technical PM, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And people were like, we don't know what it means. We're just gonna ask you to do a lot of stuff. And so my job was to, so this is funny, and I'll explain it because no one will know what it means, and I didn't know what it means. So I joined this new group, and they said, you're a technical PM, and you're gonna help us with a new silicon architecture that we acquired, and you're gonna work with middleware software vendors in the telephony IP stack and bring them on board. And I said, okay. I knew none of those words, literally. I was like 22, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And I had to figure it out. And it was really fun because it was technical and engineering-y, but they're like, okay, go meet with the CEO. I was like, what do I tell them? And they're like, we'll figure it out. Like, they have to make sure they have a plan to work with us and do the GTM. And I said, what the hell is a GTM? So I had to like learn all these things, but in that learning, I really liked talking to customers. And so that's where kind of engineering and like my expansion of what an engineer was, like building things in a factory, to like working with customers started. And that was fun. And I think that's what started drawing me out to sales, was I want to be in front of customers. I want to talk to customers as part of my day job. I want to have internal meetings. I actually was part of our capital team. Intel Capital at the time was investing in some of those. And they would ask me, should we invest in a B round? And I was like, you're asking me? I'm like, I'm an engineer. I have like 2 years of professional experience, and now you're asking me to invest in this company. So it was really amazing. I'm not sure if I'm answering that. There was a bunch of steps after that that really started pulling me more and more towards customer accountability, but again, through building stuff, and then finally revenue accountability. By the way, I thought I was really good at the first thing. Like, I'm so great with customers, and then they give you actual revenue, and like you have to you owe the company like it's like a IOU. Like, so my first job in sales, I had a $2 billion hold the back. Like, literally me and my team had to deliver $2 billion in revenue. It was my first sales job because it was later in my career. And I said, well, what if we don't? It's like, well, you owe it to the company. I was like, well, what if we miss? And it was like, well, we won't hit the budget that we committed to shareholders, so the stock will go. I was like, wait, me? Like, this is my job? Oh, like me and my team? Yes, that's your job. So I would advise not doing it that way because it was very stressful to jump into such a big number. Most sellers get a small number, and then when they get good, they get a bigger number, and then on and on and on, and then they get bigger teams, big numbers. I just was coming across as a senior leader. I felt confident about the ability to talk to customers because I've been doing it for 20 years. I felt confident about leading teams. I felt confident about speaking solutions, but that was all new to me. And so it was exciting, though. It's exciting to take a leap of faith later in your career. I would recommend it. It's very energizing.
Great.
Oh, I have a question up here that,
Do you want to repeat it?
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll repeat it.
Yeah, nice Peter, and thank you for your lecture. And yeah, this is a pretty famous interview question. So John Markell says, like, please sell this pen to me.
Please,
Yeah. How will you approach this question?
Okay, so I'm going to be interviewed here. So how would the interview question, famous interview question is, how would you sell this pen to me? I've literally never done this, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do it well. You'll have to grade me. So I have a pen here, but I'm not going to show it to you yet because it's not ready. I'm only giving it to people who are really, really productive, who are cutting edge entrepreneurs. I only have like 10 of them. So I have to be super picky. This pen is guaranteed to make you successful. You will be a better leader. You will be a better communicator. Your revenue clarity, it will come to you because you will have better focus. This pen has AI integrated into it. It already knows everything you need to know. It's exposing what's in your head and in the world. But again, I only have 10 of them. I think so highly of the potential of you and your company. I don't want to sell it to you. I want to share it with you. And I'd like you to give me feedback. And then my price, you and I are going to agree on the price after you use it for a month. Are you interested? Yeah, sure. There you go.
That was awesome.
Okay.
I don't know. Who else would want that pen?
So.
It was interesting what you did with that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
You know, actually, I'm always, I'm going to talk to my daughter. My daughter's 16 years old, and she loves Shark Tank. I absolutely cannot watch Shark Tank. And the reason I can't watch Shark Tank is because it's always on after work. And it makes me, feel worky. And I get very, opinionated, and I'm yelling at the screen, and I'm agreeing with one of the sharks, or I hate one of the sharks, or the idea is stupid, or whatever. And so I have to, take it in small increments. But she absorbs, she can do, lots of advanced math in her head now. But just recently, I saw a young woman on Shark Tank was doing flash sales of clothing. I think it was sweatshirt and crew necks. And it was all about limited quantity. So she was selling $250,000 worth of shirts in 24 hours. And so it was that idea in my mind of sometimes it's not going mass market. You were asking B2C and B2B. Sometimes it's really leaning into what's different and unique and making people feel really special about being part of that. And the other thing is, in this time of AI, and all of you might want to start working at an AI company in 5 minutes, everyone's going to have a really special idea. But unless you can validate that someone else feels that special and that they lean in and help you hone that, you're toast. Because there's so much noise out there. So that was the other thing.
So with all the technical people in the room, it's really important to notice that although you did happen to mention AI, You did not talk about all the technical features of the pen. You talked about how it's going to make the user feel.
That's right.
So remember that, how it makes the user feel. And you tapped into stuff that we probably want to feel.
Yeah. Again, like I know somebody said there's a lot of engineers in the room, and so I'll keep talking to you, so sorry if I'm excluding people. But I really still get caught up with the people who made the pen think the pen sells itself. And I was that people. I spent 2 years on this pen. It has 70 patents. It does 100 things. Talk about that to the customer. Merrie, talk about that to the customer. And I'm like, no. I'm going to talk about what the customer needs to hear. That was like such a mind-bending thing for me, moving into sales, that it's humans. Like it is something, but it's humans. And so it's like that science and art coming together. And remember when I said AI will never replace humans in sales? This is why. Because at the end of the day, somebody's writing a check to you. They are writing the check to you, not their company, them. If Merrie owns procurement, and I own $1 billion procurement budget, my butt is on the line that I'm choosing trusted suppliers. Do I trust you? Do I trust you? Do I trust you? You just came in and pitched me the same thing they did. But you had an outage last year. What do? You're new. You have a new company. Do I trust you? My team says to. Should I trust my team? It's all about humans and trust. It's a wild mind shift for many of you who are like, what do I build? What do I build uniquely? Do that, but the way you talk to your customers has to be based on that kind of human connection. All right.
So actually, I want to go back to when you asked me 1 or 2 ago, talking about how you got put in that position where you were taking on leap of faith and you had this big position problem you weren't familiar with. It's one thing to convince yourself that you can do that. How do you convince the person on the other end of the team to put you in rather than somebody who has 10, 20 years of experience in that field?
Yeah. So how do you make someone believe to bet on you, right? At any point, whether it's like 2 years in or 20 years in. I'm going to talk about mentoring and sponsoring really fast. So, and this is Merrie's definition, like books have been written completely differently with a different opposing view. So mentors are people you can call up and get advice from. They might be people you have like a relationship with or not. You might say, hey, I heard you're great in sales. Can I have 30 minutes of your time? I have some specific questions about a career in sales. You asked me that question. Those mentors might know you and can speak to your performance, or they might not. Sponsors, they know you intimately. They've known you for a couple of years. They've seen you present. They've seen you come back from a challenge. They've seen you get better at communicating. They've seen you do something, and they're interested in betting on you personally, right? They're interested in saying when you're not in the room, hey, you should take a risk on so-and-so because it's worth it. They're 70% there. They can get the other 30, no problem. I'll vouch for them. And so as much as I'd like to say I did it all by myself, and I'm awesome, and my work speaks for itself, it doesn't work that way, right? To take a leap of faith and to even grow, someone needs to help you grow. You can look at even your lives right now. I bet I can name at least one sponsor in your life, your parents, right? They're there, they're speaking about you all the time when you're not around. Probably not as much, like too much. They're talking about your business, how great you are. Like they're the biggest hype people in your life. Who else is gonna talk about you? Is it a professor? Is it your part-time job boss? Is it someone you work with in a group project who is now off in the world of business? Right, there has to be ways you start looking at that, like now. You don't have to wait. Who are those people who are going to speak for you to open a door? Are any of you looking for internships? I bet if you're looking for internships and you're just blasting your resume out, it's not fun, and it's kind of a wild west. But a better way to land an internship is look at people that you know. Look at your neighbors. Look at your friends who are there. So, I wish I could say, I just did it all by myself. I'm really grateful that it's not that way. And then also, I said this at Michigan. I want to say it here because Berkeley is an amazing place as well. One thing I undervalued until much later in life is all the people here. Like if you're not LinkedIn connecting with all of the people here, what a shame. What a huge opportunity for you to find mentors and sponsors and connections, because you never know where you're going to end up. And the more places you end up, the better you'll be as a cohort. If you all end up at 7 companies, it's not good for anybody. So go wide and go deep and explore, and as a cohort, you're going to do really, really well.
Great. Merrie, it was exciting hearing from you. Excuse me. Well, now it's really loud. I think that leaving on this finding a sponsor note is really important. It occurs to me that you, wrapped up in you, are so many different things. You're an engineer that people can relate to. You've been doing sales that people can relate to, product work that people can relate to. You happen to be a woman of color that people can relate to. You happen to be a woman that people can relate to. You happen to be from Pennsylvania, where the Super Bowl winning Eagles are also from. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can connect with Merrie. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn. You send me a LinkedIn after this. I had, I think, 200 invites next time. Last time I was presenting, so you guys have to do better than that. And
not only do better, but maybe write something, not just send a connection.
Let me expand on that. This is what happened. I was in an MBA class at the University of Michigan. It was actually a deep exercise in where I work with the team. They presented to me. I gave criticism, et cetera. Some people connected with me and just said, hey, will you be a LinkedIn connection? I said, sure. Some people wrote a quick note. Thank you, Merrie. It was really fun to do X, Y, and Z. I'd love to connect. I might not hear from that person again for 3 years. Maybe 3 years from now, I'm at a company, and they're like, hey, I just joined this company. Can I get 20 minutes with you? I have that initial note. I'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember you. Of course you can have 20 minutes with me, right?
Yeah.
And so use that for an introduction to me, but use it everywhere else. I will tell you a little trick for anybody you want to connect to. We're all human beings with egos. Appeal to people's egos. Like if there's someone you admire, a CEO of a company, a diplomat, someone you see on TV, don't write them, can we connect, or I'd like to talk to you. Say, I saw you do this amazing thing. You were an incredible fill in the blank. I would love 5 minutes of your time to ask some questions. I know your time is precious. People love to hear about themselves in a positive way, right? Especially people like me who are 10, 12 hours a day getting beat up like, oh, this is a tough meeting. It's a tough meeting. I got to do a tough thing. I got to say tough things. Would you like to tell me how much you enjoyed my speech at Berkeley? Okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes with you. Can I help you with your career? Okay, yeah. People want to hear your energy, and sincerely, be sincere. You admire somebody, tell them why you admire them. Tell them that you did the research. Listen to their podcast, YouTube. So yes, thank you for adding that.
Yeah, it just makes me think of your question about how to do sales, and it's practice, and even practice doing this. Actually, I know you didn't say this was sales, but it is kind of sales.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're looking at a long-term relationship. You're starting this dance with somebody, and maybe you start the dance by complimenting them.
Yeah, and by the way, you're going to feel really uncomfortable. You're going to be like, this is awkward, right? But think about the yes. The worst you can get is no answer. But what if you get a yes? So.
Thank you for being so authentic with us, for giving us all those tips. Let's give a big round of warm applause.